Played 95 to 99. She was a two-sport athlete and an outstanding two-sport athlete during her time here at East Ridge High School. She played volleyball and basketball, both for Coach Neely. So without further ado, Holly, tell me.
Bunch of staff.
I had to write mine down. Other people get up here and speak. So good morning. My name is Holly Hamilton Smith. I graduated in '99, which means, yes, we are approaching that 40-year mark in age. I am honored and humbled to speak on a woman that I held in such high regard. I had the privilege of playing volleyball and basketball for her, as well as coming back to student teach under her. That, my friends, was a challenge. And help her with that volleyball season. My eyes were extremely open to the hard work and effort that she had put in. When I embarked on my career as a teacher and coach, this is a life story all too well known for someone who played for Catherine Neely, or is known as a Neely girl. She epitomized a role model for young ladies and women, and so many of us have followed in her footsteps through education and sports. She gave us the skills in sports, the tools for life, and discipline to see our future into fruition, whether it be in teaching, coaching, business, or any other profession. She expected and demanded perfection. We have all been faced with these tests, whether academic, athletic, or even life application. She prepared us for each of those. We felt some of those lessons deeply, like running until we thought we might pass out. And other tests were the easy, like Sunday mornings, from her prepping us so hard. These skills and tools came in the form of her reflection of how she lived her own life. We were the ripple effect. She didn't just teach us the definite dozen that her own role model, Pat Summitt, wrote in a book. She lived them, and we absorbed them. I believe this is why she gained not only the utmost respect from all of her players, but the title of second mother, Mama Cat, and even grandmother to you younger ones. She took some of us to Lady Vols basketball games. Yes, even on school nights. She took us to the beach a couple of summers before she realized we couldn't run a dishwasher or apply sunscreen correctly, and you can't play volleyball with burnt skin. She raised funds through amazing concession stands and tournaments for us to have the best uniforms and tennis shoes. She wanted the best for her girls. I can tell you from my own experience that she became an integral part of our family. She was there more hours of the days than she wasn't. She knew me personally, my family, our situation, and the gaps that needed to be filled to help my sisters and I succeed. Her investment into our lives, as well as the lives of my sisters, was nothing short of miraculous. She was a springboard and an advocate for us and so many other young women. She beamed with pride of a parent for each of us as we found our own way and path into adulthood. Coach Neely cared, she loved, she invested, she sacrificed for each of us and every young lady that played for her.
We can go.
William and Ellen.
You can go, yeah, let's go from the board to the camera. That way. Yeah, go from the board.
I want to thank you for sharing her with all of us and allowing her to give so much of her time to the lives of young ladies that she coached. You as well were much a part of that dedication and sacrifice to the development of so many lives and the legacy of Catherine Neely to not only this community, sport, the state, and nation.
Show me which one you use.
Lastly, as I've reflected on my own relationship with Coach over the past 2 weeks, my heart has been broken. You're gonna remember it is loud. I fond memories, and yet I found even more admiration for her as I stand before you today, just being preview to the other women she coached and their stories that all bind us together as the one word that represents her: family. Thank you.
I'd like to introduce the next speaker. Everything while she was at East Ridge High School. Two-sport athlete under Catherine, and a Hall of Famer, Miss Lisa White.
Every day is a chance to get better. Lisa White. You don't have to be the best to start. You just have to start to be the best. Lisa White. The only way you should be able to know that you're at practice is by what you're wearing. Lisa White. Age is just a number, and to be on my court, you better play like you're old. Lisa White. No one said my name like Coach Neely. The squinting over her glasses, chewing that gum 90 times a minute, that gritting teeth look that only she could give was one of a kind. The look that made you walk to the baseline on the court to run without even saying a word from her. I cannot even begin to tell you what this amazing lady meant to me throughout my life. I started playing for Coach Neely as an 8th grader coming over to join a varsity team after my middle school season. From 1985 to 1989, she was my rock. Coach Neely was so much more than a coach. She was my second mama, my mentor, my role model, my counselor, my disciplinarian, and boy, she was good at that, and my hero. I know I can say the same for so many of you that are here, and so many of her former athletes that coached her and that she developed throughout her forever career. My mother and I were the first mother-daughter duo for Coach Neely. My mama Linda was on her first 1964-1965 volleyball and basketball teams here at East Ridge High School. I, like everyone else, have so many memories of my time as a pioneer with Coach Neely. Some of you have heard the stories, and some of you have lived them with me, knocking myself out in the bleachers and not knowing anybody but Coach Neely. The famous run-in with my tire story, freshman orientation that she planned herself. Then there was losing the state finals and her holding me while I cried. Report card doomsday, missing homecoming, and many, many more. Fear the fro. Some people wear the t-shirt, but ladies and gentlemen, I need a tattoo of it because I lived it. I lived it from the first day I met her as an 8th grader until the last hug I got from her. Still as an adult, Coach Neely could walk into the same room as me and my stomach would drop. As I told some of the other former players, I thought she hated me because she was so tough on me and her expectations were so high. As I got older, I found out that she loved me so much that she talked about me to the younger players, not always with a good impression. She was not only a fierce leader, but she was my friend. At my graduations, she was there. When my daddy passed away, she was there. When I got married, she was there. My college scholarship was because of the investment and time she put into me. My jersey was retired in the high school because of her. Being put in the Hall of Fame here at East Ridge High School can be attributed to her dedication and support. Yes, I put the work in, but I honestly say my success was Catherine Neely driven. She believed in me. Coach Neely demanded excellence and would not let up on me until excellence is what I gave her. Even though she was tough, which is an understatement, she was tough on me, but when she smiled at me, I knew I was somebody she loved. Those lectures in the locker room, especially after a loss, that always felt like we were walking to the Green Mile, and we really dreaded it, but those were life changers for me. They taught me so much about being a teammate, an athlete, a student in the classroom, a daughter, a woman, a parent, a leader, a friend, a mentor, a role model, and a coach. Her hugs were like medicine, and the respect I have for her is infinity. I could say thank you every day for the rest of my life, and it would never repay her for all she's done for me. Thank you, Alan and Mr. Neely, for sharing Coach Neely with all of us. She is the true definition of a winner. I can only pray that I touch a child's life as a teacher and a coach as much as she did mine. A good coach can change a game. A great coach can change a life. Thank you, Coach Neely, for honoring me enough to call me a Neely girl and for saving my life. I love you beyond death. Number 44.
Our next speaker is one of East Ridge's own. Sandy Mauser came to us from Ohio in 1998. Catherine was her mentor, her protege, and Sandy wants to come up and tell you what type of impact that Catherine had on her life. So, Coach.
It has been an honor to be a part of Coach Neely's life. She was my friend, my mentor for 23 years. I always called her Coach Neely. I respected her so much. I am blessed to have landed at East Ridge and learned from the best in this profession. She carried herself with pride, confidence in the teams, the school, and this community. She told me once, leaders prove themselves by example and attitude, and others choose to follow. Well, Coach, you had a lot of followers. I admire Coach Neely on how well she hosted volleyball, basketball tournaments. She had wall-to-wall brackets. It was always top-notch. Teams from all over the state were here, excited to be here. It had that college feel. When Coach came to work, I rarely saw her doing any paperwork in her office. I'm thinking, how is she getting all this work? How's she getting it done? Her son Alan told me the other day that you should have seen her kitchen table. Stacks and stacks of organized papers. And it hit me. When she came to work, it was more important to talk with her players, coach them up, watch film, but more importantly, get to know them. I would see a lot of her players come out of the office full confidence, believing in themselves. On a personal note, Coach Neely would take me up to the Knoxville to watch the balls games, the basketball, softball, and like Holly said, some of you can relate to this. It'd be on school nights, but she would drive very quickly, get us back. But I remember the very first time I went, a couple of fans in the row in front of us were mostly standing up, being loud. And I looked at Coach Neely, and I could really tell it was getting on her nerves. Well, it did. She pulled the fear of the fro on them. I can't go into details, but let's just say they didn't stand up or look back at us the rest of the game. There were so many great memories. I'm going to miss you, Coach Neely, but I know you'll always be here.
At this time, we have a tribute song that's going to be sang by one of our faculty members here, Mr. Anthony Zermino. He's going to be singing from the press box because of the feedback with the wireless mic. So as you listen, just reflect on your relationship and the times that we had with Coach Neely.
Looking back on the memory of the days we shared beneath the stars above. For a moment, all the world was bright. How could I have known that you'd ever say goodbye? And now, I'm glad I didn't know the way it all would end, the way it all would go. And our lives are better left to chance. I could have missed the pain, but I'd have had to miss holding you, I held everything for a moment. Wasn't I a king? But if I'd only known how the king would fall, hey, who's to say? You know I might have changed it all. And now, I'm glad I didn't know the way it all would end, the way it all would go. And our lives are better left to chance. I could have missed the pain, but I'd have to miss the dance. Yes, my life is better left to chance. I could have missed the pain, but I'd have to miss the dance.
Zermino. Our next speaker is a lifelong friend of Catherine, Miss Linda Benfield.
As you can tell, I'm not a 40-year-old ball player. But in 1954, now I say that again, 1954, I had left a very small elementary school and went to Hickson High School, which was then grades 7 through 12. When I went into my classes, they started seating us alphabetically. So Linda Leatherwood would sit here, and Catherine Marshall would sit here, or here, in every class. Well, when we got to PE class, there was nobody in there as competitive as us. So of course we had to pair up. And we have been lifelong friends ever since. We played basketball, volleyball, we were co-captains. Nobody messed with us. When our senior year came around, Coach Grace Keith, her first team out of college, came. And of course, Catherine and I had to break her in. And that's the reason she's the person she is now. So she didn't just start when she was out of college. We went to the UTC together, UC then, University of Chattanooga. And no, I wanted to tell you one event in high school. We went to GPS to play basketball. The day before we were supposed to play, Catherine turned her ankle, and it was a bad sprain. Never fear back then. You sit on that table, pull that foot back, coach taped it, and you played ball. She was a forward, and I was a guard, and you got the idea, 3 and 3? Yeah. About midway through the second quarter, she turned the other ankle. She had been playing the whole. We went in the dressing room. She said, "Coach, tape it up. I can play." And she played the rest of the game. We won that game, too. Well, when we got to college, of course, they didn't have teams for us to play way back then. But our advisor, he was a referee, Dr. Warren Averett. Some of you people might know him. But he recognized that he had Hickson girls, Red Bank girls, GPS girls, Notre Dame girls, and whatever. So he formed a basketball team. But we had nowhere to play, so he went to the church league. And there was a couple of teams that had been dominating that church league, but they didn't dominate Catherine Marshall and crew. So I think we were really the first UTC basketball team. What do you think? And we played volleyball, but we had to go with just weekend play days at a college or something. But I was a setter and she was a hitter. So guess who got the most sets? I mean, we practically lived together all the way through. Then after college, we kind of separated. I was teaching at Hickson Junior High, and she was over here, and raising our families, and we kind of got away from each other. But it never feared when we saw each other or was in a place together, we were best friends still. Then she invited me to start going to the Lady Vols games, and I didn't go to just one. I've been going now for about 10 years. But one thing about the fro, y'all keep talking about our fro. You know, when you go to games, you dress up, you do different things. Some people do. Well, there's 4 of us. So I came in one day with a headband that had feathers sticking up here like this, a headband, to go with our outfit. Nope, Catherine wasn't going to do it. Not putting it on my hair, no.
Well, we went in and we were going down the concourse, and we got so many comments. We got in the restroom. We started to leave the restroom. She said, "Linda, put that thing on my head." So I did, and we had the best times. We'd go, she would buy us tickets, said, "We're going to go to Kentucky to the ball game. We're going to go to Vanderbilt to the ball game." And we had all the best times. And I don't think anyone here will miss her any more than me. But it started young. We didn't make the basketball team in the 7th grade. We didn't make it in the 8th grade, but we were really close. But by 9th grade, we were playing first string. I accused her of sharpening her elbows every night because in practice I had to play defense against her, and I got those elbows so many times. She was one tough customer from, I guess, the day she was born. And part of that was her daddy, Tudor Marshall. Wonderful family, wonderful lady, wonderful memories. And thank you for letting me share my memories.
Got it.
Next speaker is longtime Eastridge High School assistant coach, Eastridge Middle School PE teacher, Miss and friend of Coach Neely's colleague and assistant coach, Miss Diana Brock.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak at this celebration of life service for Coach Neely, my coach, mentor, and friend. As her assistant volleyball coach for 25 years, I was asked to provide insight into what it was like to coach with her. After talking to her husband, William Neely, and receiving his permission, I'm going to share a side of this intense and competitive person that many of you may not have known. Fear the fro is the real thing. Catherine had a wonderful sense of humor and love of life. I have a few stories to share that I hope will lighten your heart today. The first incident occurred early in our coaching days at an overnight tournament. I'd gotten up to use the bathroom during the middle of the night and closed the bathroom door before going back to bed. Catherine got up a little while later and walked smack into the door. She responded like most people would who walked into a door in the middle of the night. And I lay quietly in bed, pretending to be asleep, and hoped she didn't see me laughing. The next morning, I couldn't help myself, and I said, "What was all that commotion about last night?" She said, "Somebody shut the bathroom door." "Why?" Well, I was the only one there, so I couldn't deny it. But I never shut the door again. For Christmas that year, I gave her a flashlight, and she laughed when she opened it. In the next story, Catherine turned the table on me. I was walking my class back from the track, and a bird flew over and dropped a load on my head. Unfortunately for me, it was not the blue bird of happiness. The dropping was large enough that I had to get help to wash it out. Well, I was called Poophead with an S by the faculty for several days. My dear friend and coaching partner belly laughed over it and called me Poophead. Life went on, and I thought no more about it. But at the volleyball banquet that year, I was given an umbrella and a toboggan. Catherine, of course, had to make sure that everyone knew the story. Well played, Coach. Catherine was also very hot-natured. When we traveled, the room was kept at meat locker temperature. I quickly figured out that I needed to sleep in a fleeced sweatsuit. Her philosophy was, I could put more clothes on, but she was already in a cotton nightgown and couldn't wear any less. Now, who would want to argue with that? I always slept well. I've heard hypothermia can do that for you. One long Saturday afternoon at a tournament, we got a little slap happy on the bench. We were all laughing and making comments, and Coach was listening. She started laughing until she had tears rolling down her cheeks. She turned to me and said, now spice this phrase up just a few notches to get the full flavor in effect. Dadgummit, Diana, shut up. I'm trying to coach. I guess we stopped, but I was personally happy to see her so relaxed. When Catherine and William celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary, Catherine graciously introduced me to her family and friends. Later in the kitchen, I asked her why she didn't introduce me by my real name. She looked kind of funny, and I said, you know, dadgummit, Diana. She laughed and said, I should have. Her birthday was September 25th, and the teams always wanted to have a celebration after a match because we were usually playing on her birthday. We quickly learned birthday parties are more fun if you win. Perhaps one of the most memorable birthdays was when the team gave her a party in our room. She was crowned with a tiara because she was the queen of volleyball, handed a scepter, and draped with a royal cape. She actually wore the tiara the next day. I think she really did enjoy herself that night. One day we were sitting around talking about how long we'd been coaching together. I think at that time it was 23 years. We both agreed it had been a good run, and I remarked that we had coached longer than some marriages last. During the next couple of years, we would yell the same instructions to the team at the exact same time. When it kept happening, I said, this is getting weird and it needs to stop. And we looked at each other and laughed. Catherine was the most determined and hardworking person I have ever known. I'm forever grateful she took me from a timid young woman to a colleague and confidant. There were lots of nights of intense discussions, lessons learned. But love, loyalty, and laughter win the day. Thank you, Catherine Marshall Neely, for a life well lived.
Thank you, Coach Brock. Our next speaker is, I didn't really know what her real name was until about a week ago. I always knew her as Diamond. But our next speaker is Shalonda Few. So come on up, Shalonda.
I didn't write anything down, y'all. So much I could say about Coach. She's always been Coach Neely to me. Probably about 2014, she became Grammy Neely. remember when I first came to East Ridge, I came with a big head, you know. I know what I'm doing. I can play this. It's going to be easy. And I walked in that gym, and I saw how they were practicing, and I was just like, wait a minute. So I introduced myself to her, and she asked me what I wanted to be called, and I told her Chocolate. And she looked at me with big eyes. She said, really? And I said, yeah, that's what they call me. So she said, all right. It's so much I can say about her, y'all. Like, it's so much. She I don't even know if the words are good enough to say, but she's been there for me. From 2006 up until now, she's been there for me. She was a second mom. She was a mentor. She was everything, honestly. I remember I was scared when I first met her. I was afraid. I was just, she had a mug on her face. So I was like, oh, man. But she was the best, man. She always told me, Chocolate, you're my girl. You're my girl. And I remember when I went to college because of her. She helped me get that scholarship, and I knew I was going to graduate. I had to graduate, or else. I remember I got pregnant my junior year. Y'all, I was so afraid to tell her. Like, I was so scared. She told me, she said, it's okay. She said, I did the same thing. She said, it's just don't let nobody raise your baby, and you keep going on. And I wrote that down, and every time it got hard or frustrated, either I called her or I looked at the saying that she said to me, and yeah, I don't know, it's a lot that I could say. I remember when I moved to Atlanta, she came up there, took us to some of the dream games, her and Miss Grace, and she was there. My mom moved out of town, and she picked up where she left off. She was that much of a mom to me. She gonna be real missed. But I appreciate y'all. I appreciate y'all for sharing her with me and allowing me to come into y'all's family. I really do.
I have one more speaker. I'm just going to say that this person listed herself as a volunteer or a volleyball retiree and a signer, but I happen to know that she was much more than that to Catherine. So without further ado, Marcia Goodwin North.
I talk fast, so listen fast. Thank you to Heidi and Tim for putting all this together. I was honored to be asked to speak. Thank you most to William and Tammy and Alan for sharing her. This woman had an impact on my life that was unbelievable. What do you say about a legend? A coach, a mom, a grandmother, a leader, an official, an aunt, a sister, a daughter, a role model, a friend, and a referee. I've known little Kathy Neely, as I named her, many years ago. Nobody else called her that, as she would let me for more than 50 years. Quick ride through history. I was a skinny basketball and volleyball player at Tyner High School, and they beat the crap out of us every time we played them. My first experience with that fro, she was larger than life, even then. I married, I was expecting a child, refereed for her all through that. We didn't have assigners back then. When I was pregnant with my second child, Courtney, I was 8 months pregnant. She asked me to come referee her district tournament. I said, Catherine, I'm 8 months pregnant. I can't do that, but I'll call lines for you. So I found me a black and white striped shirt, and I made the news that night. I continued to ref, and she refereed for me, high school and college. She was the only referee that ever carded Will Stern. Some of you remember him. 1 year in college, she said, I'm done. I can't deal with this anymore. I remember reffing one of her matches, and she grabbed Janie Phillips by the shirt in a timeout, and she said, Janie, hit the damn ball. Janie went up and put it on the 10-foot line, and her southern accent turned around and said, like that, Coach? And everybody cracked up. I would get so tickled listening to her and Diana that I would forget to blow the whistle. She was a legend. One time, Marie Crow and I had reffed Red Bank and East Ridge at Red Bank. Susan Thurman was a fierce rival and a very dear friend of hers. Susan won the match. Marie and I couldn't get out of that gym fast enough. We went to eat, and my phone rang, and it was Catherine. And she'd always start those phone conversations with, Marcia, this is Catherine, like I didn't know who it was. And she called to tell me what a wonderful job we did, and she lost. We went to numerous volleyball Final Fours. Now, she went to basketball all the time, but she loved volleyball, too. She loved to travel. Cleveland, Ohio, the coldest place I've ever been. Well, we took Courtney that year. She was 13 years old. I was in referee meetings all day. Catherine wouldn't go to the coaches' meetings. She said she already knew everything she needed to know. So I left Courtney with her. Now, Courtney had wanted to get her ears pierced in the cartilage, and I had said no. I was one of those mothers. Catherine took her and got her ears pierced, and when I got back to the hotel, she was letting her watch Demi Moore in striptease. Catherine just cackled. She thought it was funny. And you knew to pack the warm PJs when you stayed with her because she kept the room at 50 degrees. She always drove. I hate to drive because I've traveled so much, and she drove like a bat out of Hades, and everybody knows that. You have not lived until you've ridden with Catherine Neely in Los Angeles traffic. Trust me. Okay. Final Four in Omaha. We went 1 year, 60 degrees, had a great time. I met all my rowdy coach friends from all over the country. We had a great time. 2 years later, it was 17 degrees. The parking lot was frozen solid, and our hotel was directly across from the convention center. So we decided we wouldn't drive, we'd walk. We busted our butts in that parking lot that night trying to get back, and she just thought that was hilarious. Final Four, Sacramento, Long Beach, Louisville, Madison, Wisconsin. That was cold, too. Indianapolis, New Orleans, Hawaii. We went to Hawaii. We took Lisa White and her parents with us. She loved her players. We went to Denver 1 year to the Final Four in basketball, the only one I got to go to because Grace Keith wouldn't fly. Catherine said, I found this place in Estes Park up in the mountains. Of course, she's driving. It's snowing. It's the hotel where they filmed The Shining. That's the creepiest place I have ever been. We had a great lunch, and we couldn't get out of there fast enough. Again, she always drove. We were on the way to Indy 1 year, and we stopped in Cincinnati to get gas. She went to the bathroom. We're at some truck stop. Some guy, homeless guy, comes up and wants a ride to Indianapolis. And I turned around. Catherine was coming out of the bathroom. I said, ask her. It's her car. We ran to get away from the homeless guy. She just thought that was hilarious. She liked country music. I like soft rock. We agreed not to play the radio in the car ever, so we had wonderful conversations and lots of laughters. When Courtney was a junior, she was not happy at her school. So Catherine and I were talking one day, and she said, send her down here to me. You should have sent her a long time ago. Call Bob Balders at TSSAA and do it legally so she's immediately eligible. Yes, that's illegal, and we did it anyway. Okay? I rented an apartment down here. Best 15 months and $10,000 I ever spent. So I'm teaching in Bradley County, and I get a phone call one day from Jim Jarvis. Jim said, Marcia, I got to suspend Courtney's driving privileges for 6 weeks. She snuck off campus without signing out. And I laughed at it. I said, do what you got to do, Jim. I caught Courtney that night, and she said, Mom, I forgot my socks for practice, and I'd rather suffer Jim Jarvis than Coach Neely. She was happy to be a Neely girl. Invitational tournament at Tennessee High School, we crowned her again with another sash and a tiara because they won that tournament. She told them she'd wear it if they won it, so they did. Before we had TSSAA passes, and by this time I'm the state supervisor for TSSAA running the state tournament, she'd call me every year. You got state tournament passes for Grace Keith and I? Courtney had nicknamed Grace, Amazing Grace, when she was real young. Oh yeah, Amazing Grace, we got you covered. Every year we got those passes. She loved the Lady Vols, and everybody look at her from the stands and on TV. If you were up there, you look across to make sure Grace was there, then they could play ball. She had one job in her life, and it was at an orange school. Has anybody ever thought about that? Orange. I've seen that closet. The woman was vicious when it came to shopping, too. When she got inducted into the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame, we went to the Opryland Hotel. You all remember this one? She'd say, I'm not worthy to be all over here with all these famous people. And then she'd just giggle because she bought the cutest outfit to wear. She liked to look good. National Federation Hall of Induction, they videoed that one. All she could talk about was Presley, her granddaughter, how gorgeous she was, and the fact that she was playing volleyball, and she had been blessed with so many great volleyball players over the years. She was the most unselfish and generous person with praise I have ever known. She gave my 3 granddaughters a baby doll, and you all know she was obsessed with dolls. She had a room that was unbelievable. Make F.A.O. Schwartz look like the dollar store. She gave them 3 of those very expensive baby dolls. They played with them. We still have them, and they always fought over baby Matthew. Greater Chattanooga Sports Hall of Fame board that I served on with her, that one, there's 25 of us on that board. She could come in, and with one look, she could quiet 17 coaches with a nod. Right, Ed Foster? Absolutely. Okay? So many memories, so many giggles, so many shared sad moments. When Courtney was playing here, she would always assign Joanne Hamilton and I to the last session of the concession stand. She did that so we could clean those dang crock pots. We had crock pots. We served pasta salad. We served homemade ice cream. We had the greatest concession stand in the world, and I promise you, we've cleaned more crock pots than anybody that ever worked the concession stand at East Ridge. And I love to cook. Every time I use a crock pot, I think of Joanne and Catherine Neely. But my favorite one of all was when Travis and Tyler were at Chattanooga Christian as students. And one of them came home one day and said, Granny, are you famous? Everybody knows you. And she turned around and she said, no, honey, I'm just your granny. We miss you, Kathy. We were for a long time. You left an impression on me in so many different roles and a big role in my heart. I don't fear the fro. I love the fro. Thank you.
I guess if I learned any lesson from Coach Neely, when it comes to coaching, I learned to be flexible. So we're going to kind of change our order today, and I'm going to have Catherine's son, Alan, come up and speak, and we're going to invert our closing remarks, and then we'll do the alma mater and a dove release. So without further ado, Mr. Alan Neely.
I told Tim we weren't going to get by without me saying a few words today, right? First of all, what a great day this turned out to be. Thank you for all of you coming to celebrate my life, the life of my mother. Thank you to the city of East Ridge, the school. The school was one of the first phone calls that I made the morning that my mother passed away, because I knew that she had so many friends. What in the world were we going to do? And so here we are today, and this, we couldn't ask for a better day. A little cool, but thank you so much for showing, okay? My dad's doing great. We're working hard through the last 2 weeks to kind of clean up the things. This was a very big surprise for us, no doubt about it. My mother was such a fighter that we expected her to fight through this one too, okay? But you've heard all of the tributes to my mom, and we have had literally hundreds of phone calls and texts. And I want to share this quickly. I've heard a few words. May Day. I haven't thought about that since I was 6 or 7 years old. Today, I remember the May Day flag being wrapped out here. It was the flagpole. I don't know, maybe you remember that? And I don't know if the others do, because I'm like, wow, that was a long time. I heard the word perfection. Everybody knows how perfection was expected, especially me. more than you guys do. So let me say, you've heard a lot of words about my mom. I do have a few words. Some of y'all have heard a few of these words. But coronavirus is very real for my family. It took the life of my mother. My mother was not 100%, but my mom and my dad and my aunt were all affected the same day. And we spent basically a month in the hospital, and it took the life on November 18th of my mother at 1:17 in the morning. My mom and dad were 1 month short of being married 59 years. 59 years. So when I look back over the school years, which is most of my life if you don't know that, I came to Eastridge when I was 2. And you can laugh at these, okay? I told some of the people earlier, when I came to Eastridge High School with my mother, she was raising a drug addict and a janitor because I was drugged from every gym in Hamilton County and Bradley County from up to about 10 years old. And I also got janitorial duties of sweeping the gym floor with the rug. I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. Until I got a chance to run the concession stand. In Beverly, I did it well. Okay? I was trusted with popping popcorn and serving candy and even got to take money. And I didn't get to keep it, okay? But that was my role at Eastridge High School, okay? Some of you know that I'm an only child. Some people would say a golden child. And over the years, there were many sisters. Everyone's looked over and said, thank you for sharing. Well, we didn't share. My mom took her life and dedicated it to all of y'all. I had many sisters. They came to our house. They slept at our house. They vacationed with us. I'm like, who are these people? Okay. And there are a few that were really, when I was, when 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, that were, they all were in high school at that time, twice my age. And so I say I had very plentiful group of sisters who treated me like I was their young brother. I can't remember all their names. There were some names like Connie Maxwell and Terry McPherson. Kathy Nolan were in my impressionable years, okay? But I have one story. Y'all have all given stories. I have one story, and it is a basketball story. And I'm probably 6 years old. So this was either a district or a regional championship game because they were always held at Eastridge. And it was in the closing seconds of the game. And I believe it was Kathy Nolan, one of her players, was at the free throw line, and the crowd was absolutely silent. And I, at 6 years old, thought it was cute to scream out, tickle the twine, as loud as I could. It's the only time in my life that I know that I thought my mama was going to kill me as her only son, okay? I never forget that. And how do you remember? I don't remember being 6 years old, but I remember that. So certainly if you've turned on the news or opened Facebook or Instagram, the radio, over the past weeks, you've read or heard about Coach Catherine Neely, the legend. I learned things I didn't even know. In fact, yesterday, actually maybe the day before yesterday, I was reading about some Tennessee state resolutions that were issued in honor of my mom. I didn't know that. But all those stories are true. She really loved East Ridge High School. But I'd like to take just a minute to talk about the other Catherine Neely. And some of y'all have stolen some of my stories. This is what happens when you come last. But she was Catherine Neely, Mama Cat to you guys, Coach Neely. But she was a daughter to my grandparents, a sister to Carol, wife to my dad, mother to me. You know, she was an aunt to countless nieces and nephews, grandmother, and what I haven't heard anyone say, she was a great-grandmother. So in the early years of my parents' marriage, as I said, almost 59 years, one of my parents was on a sports path, and one of my parents was on a totally different sports path, which was hunting and fishing. You've got to decide which parent went in which path. You know, the one thing that I did not receive from my mother was the sports gene. I tried it, didn't work for me. I even tried the afro one time. It didn't work for me. You remember that, right? Didn't help at all. But you did have several traits. I've heard you talk about several things that she passed to you, about the perfection. I heard that several times. But to me, my mom was a very intelligent person. Okay? She was, and you know, a straight A student in school and a straight A student through graduate school. You know, I say the apple didn't fall far from the tree, okay? That perfection and that expectation of performance was also at our house, okay? My mom had a gift of discernment. You can tell she was definitely a decision maker and quick. And I heard some pointed, you know, if you were ever with her at a restaurant and somebody as a server made a little mistake, she was quick to correct them, okay? Never pulled a punch, never let him hit her, never hit her opinion, okay? Excuse me. Organization. I heard Ed Foster say organization. I heard Sandy say organization. And by the way, I didn't know you were from Ohio. But at my mom's house, everywhere you went, she had piles of information. And Stan, you got most of those now. But everything about the Sports Hall of Fame or about her teams or the East Ridge Hall of Fame all had its own little neat, little square stack, and some of them were a foot deep in paper. And it was copies after copies after copies, all neatly stacked up. Leadership was another trait that my mother had. And leadership is my personal greatest burden. You know, as a leader, it will seek you out. You think about that as you position yourself in leadership roles that you saw and learned from her. You offer yourself for leadership, and it will seek you out. My mom had great wisdom. She was always great with advice. And as I said earlier, never pulled back from sharing her opinion. Probably one of the longest loyalty, I say longevity in her role, 56 years at the high school. That's a long time. Both my parents worked and retired at the same company, and I've been with my employer now for 40 years. Wonder where that came from, right? Longevity and loyalty. She loved her school. Just a couple more, but my mom was a very compassionate person. I hear that as you guys are sharing your stories. You know, I say there's not a person here today that hasn't received the gift of compassion from my mom and from my dad. For us, it was gifts in abundance at Christmas and birthdays and contributions in time of need. For some of you, it was a path to a prosperous future. And she paved the way for a lot of her girls to make it through college and on. Both of my parents were able to retire at age 55. You didn't know my mother retired. She actually retired from teaching, but continued coaching. So my mom and dad had to build a new life together for 20 years after retirement. Bless their hearts. Even my dad started watching basketball on TV. I never thought that would happen. But they still maintain their sanity. My dad still liked to fish, and he still liked to go to lunch with Ronnie on Tuesdays. But for my mom, it was still anything sports. Anything. Basketball, volleyball, softball. But most of all, she liked her Lady Vols. You've heard this. And her, in case you didn't know, this is her Q-tip friends. Have y'all all heard the Q-tips over here? They all got their fingers up. You know what I say as I'm looking through my mom's things is I'm like, what in the world am I going to do with all those orange clothes? Okay? Oh my goodness. But what you didn't know, you've heard, it was about one of the names for my mom that is the best was Granny. You know, she has two grandchildren and 4 great-grandchildren. And they called her Granny. Granny, that's what we call her today, okay? And we always wonder why our children and grandchildren love her more than they love us. And some of y'all have heard this. But Granny never said no to anything at any time. Granny would let you eat anything you wanted at her house at any time. She always had ice cream. She would literally get down in the floor at 75 years old and play with you anything you wanted to play. I heard about the dolls. She had this amazing collection of dolls. You know, I'm an only child. I'm thinking, what in the world am I going to do with all those dolls, right? But she was so fortunate and so grateful that my dad and her donated those dolls to the Tennessee Baptist Home just a few years ago to make sure that girls that were unfortunate had a doll. We're talking thousands of dolls. But there's still an American Girl doll under the tree for all the granddaughters, okay? And Granny's lap was the most sought-after lap in the house. Everybody lines up and fought for sitting in Granny's lap. And I want to close with a very serious note. So, 3 years ago, approximately, my wife and I had a chance to sit down with my parents and talk to them about their salvation and their acceptance of Jesus Christ as Lord. My mother's sports life was her life. Her younger life was devoted to Christ in Berks United Methodist Church in Hickson. And during that time, she dedicated her life to Christ and accepted Christ as her Lord and Savior. And she told us that 3 years ago, so that when she passed, my mother was suffering. She was ill and not recovering. And now today, yes, we'll miss her, but we rejoice with faith that my mother has a new body and that she's free from the pain and suffering that she had and walks the streets of gold and is in awe of our Lord Jesus Christ. I want to leave you with that because she loved us all. But you know what? She wouldn't trade places again for nothing. Thank you very much. Tim, thank you for putting this together. We're so thankful. What a great day for this. And thank you for East Ridge High School.
There you go. Okay, at this time, hate to follow that. That's a good job. We're going to come up, have Mayor Brian Williams we've got a few officials from the city of East Ridge. I'd just like to introduce them real quick. We've got Councilman Mike Chauncey, Councilman Andy Witt, Councilperson, and State Representative Esther Helton, and of course Mayor Brian Williams. Mayor Williams, I don't know if when you guys were coming in, the top road up here, if you saw a new street sign there that says "See Neely Way." The Catherine Neely Way is something that's familiar to all of us, and hopefully something that we can leave for future generations here at East Ridge High School. But Mayor Williams has a presentation for the family. He would like to come up and say a few words at this time. So, Mayor Brian Williams.
Thank you, Coach James and the Neely family. I'm honored to participate in the Coach Neely's Celebration of Life today. Coach Neely has touched so many lives that we'll never know the full scope. Each of us do know her impact and will carry throughout our lives. As we've seen from touring the East Ridge High School, that Coach Neely was a key figure at our school. She taught, guided, and pushed student athletes to believe in themselves and always give their best. Her accomplishments were not only observed here locally in the East Ridge, but also by the Chattanooga Sports Hall of Fame, Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame, and the National Association of Athletic Coaches. But more importantly, her students will carry these memories and accomplishments throughout their own lives. This is evident from seeing the mass outpouring on social media like the Neely girls. Today, December 5th, we gather for Coach Catherine Neely's Celebration of Life, and we truly celebrate her incredible life, but please keep her family in your continued thoughts and prayers. We know our experiences with Coach Neely will always continue to be present in our own lives and will continue to live with us. So not only do we want to celebrate her life today, but I prepared a proclamation on behalf of the East Ridge City Council and the City of East Ridge to continue to remember this special day year after year. I would like to read and present this proclamation to Coach Neely's family. If you'll come down front, and I'd like to ask the council to come front as well. The City of East Ridge Proclamation, Coach Catherine Neely Day. Whereas Coach Catherine Neely was the legendary coach at East Ridge High School for the girls volleyball team for 47 years and the girls basketball team for 43 years. And whereas Coach Neely was also the athletic director for 20 years, working the gym that bears her name. And whereas Coach Neely was one of the pioneers in the early years of women's sports at UTC, helping organize the first intercollegiate competition in volleyball and women's basketball there. And whereas Coach Neely was a member of the Chattanooga Sports Hall of Fame, the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame, and the National Association of Athletic Coaches. Whereas one of Neely's most notable accomplishments was recognized as the winningest coach in Tennessee since the sport was sanctioned in the state by 1976, and was also recognized as one of the nation's top 5 winningest volleyball coaches. And whereas sadly Coach Neely passed away in November 2020 and will be deeply missed by her family, by the student athletes whose lives she helped mold, and the citizens of East Ridge. Now therefore I, Brian Williams, Mayor of the City of East Ridge, Tennessee, do hereby proclaim December 5th, 2020 as Coach Catherine Neely Day. in the city of East Ridge, and encourage all citizens to recognize the accomplishments of Coach Neely and honor her remarkable legacy at East Ridge High School in the city of East Ridge in the state of Tennessee.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Mayor, thank you very much. At this time, young lady, would you like to bring the dove to the center? I've got something I'm to read here. From the beginning of recorded time, white doves have symbolized purity, holiness, and love. They have been protected in temples and palaces around the world throughout divinity. The Bible tells us Noah released a dove after the great flood and returned with an olive branch, symbolizing new life. Again, in the New Testament, we find that when John the Baptist baptized Jesus, Scripture says the Holy Spirit descended upon our Lord in the form of a dove. The doves released here today will symbolize loved ones who have passed before. As they soar toward the heavens, a single remaining dove will be released, representing the spirit of the loved one here today. The doves are trained to know their way home, just as Christians know their way home to heaven. So with that said, if we could all rise for the singing of the Alma Mater. It may be a while for many of you on the back of your program. As a rule of thumb, we sing the second verse here at East Ridge High School. Closing. There we go. In closing, I hope this was a fitting tribute to one of the most wonderful people. To come into my life. To the family, thank you for sharing Coach with us. To the community and alumni, it's a huge void that cannot be filled. Here at East Ridge High School, but no one will ever fill her shoes. Catherine, Coach, friend, Coach Neely, opponent, rival, competition, or I love to call her Mama Cat. Whatever we called her with respect and admiration. To me, missed. To you, and to Lee, thank you, and have a good day. That concludes the ceremony. Rocky Top.
Wish that I was on a rocky top down in the Tennessee hill. Ain't no smoggy smoke on Rocky Top, ain't no telephone bill. Once I had a girl on Rocky Top, half man, the other half cat. Mild as a meat, but sweet as soda pop. I still dream about that. Rocky Top, Tennessee.